People of Earth, my name is Colin, your name is Audience, and welcome back to this. As promised, when I have a week in which I don't do anything, I'm gonna keep coming back to this college type thing. I did record all of it in one go, but I actually decided just now that I think it'll be easier to get the full picture out and be as accurate as possible if I just go one at a time and just film it for each year of college rather than doing it all in one go and feeling pressed to pick and choose out of that long clip what I want to use. But anyway, so we're moving on now. We're back in the college years, and this is sophomore year. So for those of you who don't know, if you haven't seen the last vlog, go watch that. Or not the last vlog, I think it's the one before it. Can't remember the episode number, but I'll have it linked. I basically went through freshman year and went over everything that happened there. It was crazy, as I kind of mentioned in that one. Towards the end of my freshman year, my mental health was taking a bit of a dip. And maybe a dip is putting it lightly, but regardless, it was. So, moving on to sophomore year, that summer was not terrible. I had done swim coaching as I was, doing that for most of my life up until that point, which was fine. Very much enjoyed it. As I moved back into school, I had signed up and agreed to live on campus again, more specifically in a single dorm. I shared a bathroom with somebody, but other than that, it was really my own space. I had my own room, my own bed, desk, everything, all mine, which was pretty great. And it also was amazing that the dorm that I was in was right on the quad, which was pretty cool. If you don't know where the quad is at JMU, look it up on a map. But that's mainly like the main green area that people would go hang out on, or that most of their classes are surrounding. Most of the academic buildings are centered around the quad. Some of them obviously are in a different part of campus, but for the most part, my classwork took place around the quad. So it was great. At one point in the spring semester, which we'll get to in a second, I actually walked to my final exam after waking up maybe 15 minutes before it started. So that was pretty great. But going in there, I had made a couple decisions with this at the suggestion of my mother, actually, that if I was going to be in fact living alone, which I was, I should make every effort to get out and do something, to meet people, to be social in some capacity, so that I wasn't just laying around in my room feeling bad and not going anywhere. And so what happened with that was I did two things. I, first of all, decided to be more active. I was already a member, but I wasn't super active in the gaming club, PlayMU, on JMU's campus. And the jury's still out on whether that was a good decision or a bad decision. We'll get to in the junior and senior year episodes. We'll talk a little bit more about that. But that was just a way of me to maybe meet some people, maybe form some sort of friendships with people, at least get a group or conversing with people on a regular basis. And then the second thing that I did was I did intramural flag football, which wasn't an athletic prowess moment. It was simply, hey, this is a thing. It might be fun. It'll get me out of the house. Let me go do it. And so that was really fun. I really enjoyed it. We lost nearly every game, but I really enjoyed the people that were there. I don't, speak to those people anymore. They weren't, the most important people in my life that I found. But for the time that I was a part of the team, it was pretty fun. Got to know some interesting people. They were nice. That's all I can really say about it. It was a good experience. Moving on to kind of the middle of the year, I actually I believe it was October, things were at a point where I was still having mental issues, not, struggling with dealing with things, getting over what had happened freshman year, just not feeling my best. Not a bad place, but I certainly was not in the best place back then. So there was a lot that I was dealing with, struggling with, just, having trouble thinking it through, having trouble getting over it. And that was the main reason why I made the decision to go to the counseling center, which is a support program belonging to JMU, in which they offer counseling. And so I've never been big on the therapy idea. It was never something that was super talked about in my family. It wasn't something that we did. Not to say that nobody said you couldn't, it wasn't banned or anything. It was just something that was never discussed. And I don't know why, but it wasn't. But what I can say is it was a really positive experience for me. I was put with a counselor. Originally, I went in for the original kind of assessment. I don't know if that's the right word, but I went in and they basically said, "Do you want a male counselor? Or would you like a female counselor?" And at the time, to the person that was basically interviewing me, I said, "Oh, I don't care. I don't have a preference either way," because I really thought that I would be fine either way. But they did end up assigning me with a male therapist. Isn't the right word. Counselor is what I'll use. They assigned me a male counselor, and he was fantastic. It was really great to just kind of brain dump. It wasn't necessarily maybe from purely a value perspective. I wouldn't say that it was oh my gosh, it's revealing so much about me, but it was more so just somebody else to hear everything that was going on upstairs and filter out the negativity or filter out just all of the nonsense that was in there and basically say, here's what I think the main problems are, work on those, rather than me just being I don't know what the problem is, I don't feel good, what's going on? And if I can be perfectly honest, I was not in a dangerous place. It was purely just a feeling kind of sad most of the time. Confused about, the justification of whose fault was what happened freshman year. Was it truly my fault, or was the other party involved to blame? How do I justify that to myself? How do I get over that? How do I move past it, learning something from it, or just saying, hey, that was really crappy that happened, but there's nothing I could do about it. But anyway, it was just a really nice experience to brain dump to somebody and have them say, here's what I think is going on. Here's some things that you can do to maybe help. Here's some things that you can do to maybe improve upon some of the issues that you're having. And it really did help, just the kind of talking about it to somebody, even if they really didn't care, which you never know what somebody else is thinking when you're talking, so who knows. But it was nice to just go in there an hour a week and just kind of brain dump and have somebody just listen, basically. And I think that's the main key. I think everybody should have that. I'm not saying everybody should go to therapy necessarily, but I think that everybody should try very hard in their life to have somebody that they can just talk to about just literally anything, about truly how they're feeling, not hold anything back, but be completely open with. And for some people, that means paying a therapist or having a therapist to talk to. For other people, that just means having, a girlfriend or a boyfriend or a really close friend or a family member, and that's completely fine. But just please, please have somebody in your life that you can be 100% open with, because it is so beneficial to just you're feeling good. Essentially, it helps. That I don't know serotonin, dopamine. I don't know chemistry, brain chemistry. I'm not a scientist, but I can say is that I came out of those therapy sessions, counseling sessions, whatever you want to call it, every week, feeling pretty good. And eventually, towards the end, I believe it was December, that was kind of when I stopped. And that wasn't I had decided to stop. It was more so that was the standard time frame. Is they kind of laid out, here's what we think his issues are, and let's go ahead and say that he should have counseling for this long. And it was perfect. Obviously, you get out of it what you put into it. So if you go in and you're going to lie, then you're not going to get anything out of it. You just truly have to be completely open and completely honest with yourself and the person that you're working with, or who's working with you more specifically. So that was an interesting journey for sure. Very happy that I did that. Very healthy experience. And it definitely has changed the way that I think about things. Not to say that I had a wrong way of thinking about things before, but I just have a different way of thinking about things that maybe is a little bit more healthy. But who's to say? Moving forward from that, I was taking coursework, which was all going very well. And then right around March of 2020, something crazy happened, and I think we all know what it is. COVID. Yeah. Yep, you guessed it. Good job. Shocking that you knew that that was going to happen. Basically, what happened there was we went on spring break. We got basically some messaging from JMU that said, hey, we're extending your spring break. And I was like, very cool, very cool. Let me go back to my dorm and grab my computer for this extended break. Sounds good. And I remember very vividly the day that I went to go get my computer, the computer that I use still to this day, and bring it back home. I got home that night, and there was an email or a text message or something waiting for me that basically said, hey, we're online for the rest of the semester. Here is the time when you should come back to your dorm and clear it out. And I was kind of upset because I had literally just been in my dorm 2 hours earlier, and I easily could have done a lot more stuff if I had known. So at this point, I also had a car on campus or campus adjacent. I was paying for a parking, like a residential parking pass, which basically meant there was a lot across the street, little bit ways away that I could park my car at, and then I could use it for grocery shopping, etc. Going over to places, just driving home on weekends, that sort of thing. And so so then COVID hit. We all moved off of campus. We started our online coursework. That went pretty well. I was pretty bummed at the time because one of the professors that I had was one of my favorite professors of all time. One of my favorite teachers of all time, in fact. He was a history teacher, and more specifically, he was, I believe, a humanities teacher. And the way that he was teaching his class was the way that I truly believe that a college class should be taken, or should be presented, the information. And so it was actually a professor that my older brother, Tristan, had when he was at JMU. And so it was just he was just really good at his job. That's the best way I could put it. He was fantastic at his job, very engaging, really taught a college course at what you would expect a college course to be like. You go in, you need to be prepared, you go hard in the paint with the discussions, you're expected to have this amount of reading done, and you just plow through, and then you write some papers. And it was a very straightforward class, wasn't super difficult, but there wasn't a lot of expected of you. And it wasn't a class that you could just sit around and twiddle your thumbs during. But when that went online, that kind of took a sharp dive because obviously that doesn't carry over super well through online learning, unfortunately. So a little bit disappointed that I missed out on the end of that semester with him, but what are you gonna do? Global pandemic, right? During this sophomore year is around the time that I started looking for roommates for junior year, is I wanted to live off campus at that point. And at this point, as I mentioned, my only real friend group so far in college had been that friend group that I was a part of with that girl that I was into. And obviously, after the whole fiasco that happened freshman year, again, if you don't know what I'm talking about, go listen to the last college episode. It'll be linked. I no longer had a really solid friend group. I no longer really had people that I was hanging out with oftentimes. I had people from the gaming club that I would hang out with often online, but in terms of people that I was maybe going to live with, there weren't many prospects, I'll put it that way. So I ended up putting just a little post in the, in our class Facebook page, our class of 2022 Facebook page, basically just saying, hey, looking for roommates, here's the places I want to live. And that is basically how I met my future roommates, who were going to be my roommates junior year, which include Nick, who, if you know me, you probably know Nick. You've probably met him at least once. Or maybe not, but he's a great guy, I love him very much, and we would live together for junior and senior year, but we're not there yet. We're still in sophomore year. So Nick and I hung out a couple times, got dinner a couple times, we're getting to know each other, see if we did want to move in with each other, and eventually we did go and sign our lease for our apartment complex, and that basically ended sophomore year. Not as chaotic or maybe as eventful as freshman year, but certainly a year with a lot of growth in it. Obviously, COVID put a bit of a damper on the entire year. At least there is some silver lining to it for me, that it brought my friend group from high school a little bit back together, and now we are arguably closer than ever. That's going to do it for this week's episode. Hopefully you enjoyed me talking more about my college experience. I will see you guys next week, but if I don't, have a good one. Peace.